I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last event of our webinar series for 2021. My name is Nicole Gonzalez. I'm a master's student at the University of Texas at Austin. I joined the Women's Network earlier this year as a graduate student representative, and I now also manage our social media platforms. So typically, Dr. Rebecca Caldwell kind of does the introduction, but an emergency has come up. She is our technical program director, so I have stepped in for today. I want to remind everyone that this event is being recorded, and we will post the recording of this webinar to our YouTube channel. So the link for that will be in the chat. And also, if you are not a member of the AAPG Women's Network, please join us. The link will also be in the chat for you to join. I want to thank, first off, Dr. Rebecca Dodge for reaching out to us and for putting this awesome webinar together. We're really excited to have her. I also want to thank Chisholm and Anaí, they're moderators for today, as well as Rebecca Caldwell and the rest of the AAPG Women's Network leadership team. They're all listed on this slide. So thank you guys so much for your support and your help with organizing this event. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Chisholm and Anaí, who will be moderating our event.
Thanks, Nicole, for that introduction. So good morning, everyone, or good day, everyone. My name is Chisholm Onubogu. I'm the lead petrophysicist for Total Energies here in the Exploration Hub in Houston. I joined the AAPG as an active member in 2002, and then I joined the AAPG Women Network Webinar Committee this year. I've also participated in discussion with the Sustainability Committee of the AAPG Network. And today, as Nicole said, I will be one of the moderators for this webinar. Once again, thank you all for attending this webinar.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anaí Carrera, and I am also one of the moderators for today's webinar. I'm a geoscience PhD student at the University of Southern California, and I use geochronology, thermochronology, and geobarometry methods to study the uplift history of the Aleutian Islands, obtain regional uplift and erosion rates, and ultimately investigate the mechanisms that lead to arc uplift at subduction zones. I am also interested in DI research in the geosciences specifically and outreach efforts. I joined the AAPG Women's Network Webinar Committee this year as a graduate student representative, and I'm excited to be here and thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, Anaí, for that introduction. So just to go quickly through what our agenda for today will be, it would be very interactive. So sit tight because today we have in our midst, we've got Dr. Rebecca Dodge, who will give us a 15-minute talk on the Texas Art Educational Outreach Exhibit. And after this, we will have a quiz. The quiz will be interactive. We are going to play this quiz using Kahoot. So I hope you've got your competitive hat on because this will be very interesting. After which Dr. Dodge will take 5 minutes to answer any questions from the participants. So you can drop in your questions using the chat box, or at the end of this Kahoot, we will have time for you to unmute your mic and ask your questions directly. Then we will transit into another very interesting presentation by Dr. Dodge on Imagery Resources, and this would last for another 15 minutes. Then we will have 2 Kahoot sessions. The first Kahoot session will be a pairing game, and this would last for 10 minutes, while the second Kahoot session would also be a game, but it would be a matching game this time around, and this would also last for 10 minutes. At the end of these 2 Kahoot games, we will begin the final Q&A sessions. Again, you can submit your questions using the chat box, and then you can also unmute yourself and ask the questions, and Dr. Dodge here will be glad to answer your questions. That being said, I yield back to Anaí, who will introduce Dr. Dodge.
Yeah, so let's welcome Dr. Dodge. She received her bachelor's in geology from the University of Texas at Arlington and her master's and PhD from the Colorado School of Mines. Her first postgrad job involved photogeologic and field mapping of active faults in Nevada and Utah for the USGS branch of earthquake tectonics and risk. Her move to a petroleum career continued the imagery, application, and structural mapping focus and involved airborne and spaceborne photography and imagery. She spent 14 years in the oil exploration business, applying remote sensing technology for both international exploration and environmental purposes. Since joining academia 22 years ago to teach geoscience at the University of West Georgia, she has been researching and teaching the uses of satellite imagery for resource and environmental management applications. She's currently an emeritus geology and environmental science associate professor at Midwestern State University. In addition, she is deeply committed to training and educating future science teachers in geoscience, earth system science, and environmental observation techniques, with an emphasis on the integration of field observations and geospatial technology. She provides online earth science teacher training through the American Geosciences Institute and has a grant from the U.S. Geological Survey to provide teachers and faculty with geospatial technology training. She consults on teaching resource development with textbook companies and online teaching resource developers. She volunteers in K-12 classrooms through the West Texas Geological Society. Dr. Dodge is a certified geologist in the state of Texas and is a certified petroleum geologist with AAPG. She has served as a president of the Dallas Geological Society and escaped serving as a president of the North Texas Geological Society by retiring and moving to Midland in August of 2018. She served in the AAPG House of Delegates for 10 years, representing the Georgia Geological Society. She also served as the president of both the Energy Minerals Division and the Division of Environmental Geology for AAPG. Welcome, Dr. Dodge, and thank you for sharing with us the amazing materials you've been working on.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who's helped make this presentation happen. We've had several practice sessions, and I'm just hoping I can remember what I'm supposed to do and make it go smoothly. So I think to get started, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start my PowerPoint. Okay. Oops, I bet I stopped. I bet I shared the wrong screen. All right, I hope now that you are seeing an image on your screen.
Oh, Dr. Dodge, we do not see anything right now.
All right, let's try this again. This worked 5 minutes ago, I swear.
It's always like this.
Screen 2, share. Can you see the Kahoot screen now?
Yes, we see
All
the
right.
Kahoot.
Then I'll start the. Now I hope you see an image.
Yes, we are good to go.
All right, this is good. Okay, so I have begun an outreach effort that involves using satellite imagery in a museum setting as art to help teachers introduce students to landforms and the changes that are taking place on our Earth. And this exhibit is called Texas as Art. I've been working on this for about a year, and it involves using state parks and historic areas and other places in Texas that are managed by Texas Parks and Wildlife as the anchor for each one of the pieces of art. And it's designed to introduce students to how our natural resources are managed and restored. This is supported by a grant from the U.S. Geological Survey to an organization called AmericaView. AmericaView consists of 39 state views in which professors at diverse universities are teaching students how to use satellite imagery to manage Earth systems. So they could be doing oceanography, agriculture, forestry, energy exploration, any range of things that can be studied from outer space and monitored. Texas View has 13 member institutions, and all their logos are shown on this slide. The Texas as Art exhibit that exists now covers the western part of Texas and includes 4 ecoregions: the Edwards Plateau, the rolling plains and high plains, and the Trans-Pecos ecoregions of Texas. The works of art that you're going to be seeing are all false color images of the earth. In this slide, the central panel is a natural color image, and all of the others cover the same area, but I've used different wavelengths of light to create different color palettes and to show them in a more artistic way. And you may like some of these, or you may just prefer the natural color. I'm going to start with this first piece of art because this is where I live. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, we have the city of Midland in green with all the trees and lawns and golf courses. And to the southwest, we have the city of Odessa. And then we have Monaghan Sandhills State Park in the left-hand side. And in this image, there are so many landforms and so many different things going on that this is a good way to exhibit how I'm trying to enable teachers to use this imagery to teach about things that they have to teach about according to their state or national standards. This is just one of those word clouds, and it shows things that show up in the Texas standards for earth science from grades 4 through 12, the things that repeatedly show up grade after grade after grade that teachers have to teach their students about. Weathering, deposition, and erosion shows up in multiple grade levels. As you get into middle school and high school, you get into things like landforms and water resources. And so with this one image that I have, you can cover multiple different topics. You could bring your students to the museum after you've introduced these topics and then have them use a scavenger hunt that I've developed to find particular landforms. For example, in the bottom corner of that image, you have a whole series of beautiful drainage patterns. And this relates to erosion and landform transformation by rivers. And this is a topic that comes up repeatedly for earth science teachers. You can also talk about wind, erosion, and deposition if you go to the dune field. And in addition, you can see petroleum fields and petroleum production. The park is actually right here, and the petroleum production pretty much surrounds this state park. This is Permian Basin petroleum production. So I've developed an activity that teachers can use that involves studying change over time in the patterns of the dune fields and in the amount of vegetation within the dune fields. In addition to being able to see on the imagery the oil and gas production in the Permian Basin, you can see new renewable types of energy that is being developed in the basin. And so right here where this arrow is pointing is a large field of solar panels. This is when they were just beginning to develop this solar field. And one of the things that you can do at this point is talk about energy density and how much energy can be produced by the footprint of this solar farm versus how much energy can be produced by a similar area that has oil or gas wells on it. In this area of Texas, this is the city of Abilene in the upper right. And the Callahan Divide, this large purple uplift, is covered with wind farms. So this is an area where wind energy has become very successful in the state of Texas. So here's another renewable resource that you can talk about and explain why that uplift is a favorable location where some of the other areas surrounding it are not favorable because you don't get the amount of wind that you need. And this is just another one of the scavenger hunt pieces that the students can go and search through the exhibit and find this and see it on the image very, very clearly, the development of the wind fields. Here's an area where you can begin to talk about water resources. This is the city of San Angelo in purple. And the area that is shown in brown and looks like a patchwork quilt, these areas are covered with agricultural fields. The reason they're able to have this much successful agriculture here is because they have the Concho River as a water resource, and they've been able to put in a series of water reservoirs that enable them to do the irrigation that they need to do. So that's the use of water resources, how we develop them, where we find our water resources. And in this case, it's not groundwater, it is water from human-created lakes. And you can begin to talk about the possibility of the generation of electricity from hydroelectric dams. Unfortunately, none of these dams are actually hydroelectric, but you can introduce that concept here and then take them to places in Texas where they do have hydroelectric power. If you start talking about plate tectonics and collisional features and igneous features and mountain uplifts, you can go to West Texas. And in this scene, we're seeing the Rio Grande River is cutting diagonally across the scene. North of the border here in the United States, we have Big Bend Ranch State Park. This is a very heavily volcanic area. And there's also here the Solitario Dome, which is the 4th largest laccolith on the planet. So you can talk about extrusive and intrusive igneous rocks related to this particular piece of art. And this is the scavenger hunt. They have to go around and find the image that has this particular feature. And you can see what it looks like from an aircraft on the right side of the slide. We're still in that area of Texas, out in West Texas. And in this region, we have an exposure of the Appalachian Mountains that have come down from Oklahoma down through Texas. And they're actually exposed in the lower right-hand portion of this piece of art. And overlying this mountain range was a very thick layer of flat limestones. So this is an erosional window that has resulted and exposed this heavily folded mountain range through the process of erosion after it was buried by flat-lying rocks. So this, again, you're talking about just basic geological principles here, and also collisional plate tectonics that created the mountains to begin with. This is just showing a close-up of those folded mountain ranges, and you can see the plunging anticlines and synclines. We can also talk about extensional tectonics. This is a large graben out in West Texas. And in this area, we have a Playa Lake on the bottom here. This was a lake like Lake Lahontan or Lake Bonneville during the Ice Age. This was filled with water, and it's now a dry lake bed most of the year. In this particular season, there's been some rainfall, and there are shallow lakes at the top that will soon evaporate. In this region, it's so dry that they are actually irrigating these fields with groundwater. So again, you can bring in the water resources aspect and talk about extensional tectonics and the development of fault block type of mountains. This, I had to steal part of New Mexico. This isn't really Texas's art. The only part that's Texas is the city of El Paso and the Franklin Mountains. The rest of this is New Mexico. And this is the Portillos volcanic field. You could see a very large lava flow here and multiple Mars-style volcanoes here. And the thing I love about this scene is that this is where they trained the Apollo astronauts before they went to the moon. They took them out here to train them how to safely collect volcanic rocks without creating a lot of fragments that would puncture their spacesuits. So they had them out there banging on rocks to train them before they went to the moon. So this is, again, the scavenger hunt, and they find the image that has the large volcanic flow. You can talk about natural hazards, all kinds of natural hazards, but in this case, I'm going to talk about a fire that took place during the drought in 2011. This is the Davis Mountains in the upper right-hand corner. If you've never been there, it's a beautiful place. It's got pine trees and just a beautiful forest. But in 2011, a fire burned more than 315,000 acres. And this reddish brown area is the fire scar after that fire took place. So you can see the before, this is from 1994, 2011, and now you can also see that the area has recovered pretty well. Then as an extension to this, I've developed lesson plans where teachers can use videos from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to teach students about things like land use management through prescription burns that will help to prevent wildfires in the future. And these lesson plans include quizzes and discussion style questions and writing assignments. So these are units that teachers can use with their students. And another unit I've developed concerns the Playa Lakes. This is in the panhandle of Texas. All of these little black dots are Playa Lakes that are filled with water during the springtime. These are the recharge for the Oglala Aquifer, and that's what they're using for irrigation purposes up here. But many of the farmers have plowed through these and planted on them, or they allow soil to wash into them, and they no longer act as recharge sources. So this is a way to introduce water resource management and also the restoration of these playas that is going on by Texas Parks and Wildlife, which is covered in this video, and I've developed a lesson plan around that. So I hope I haven't gone over my 15 minutes here, but I do want to thank Texas View and America View for funding this for me. So now get in this show. All right, so now I think are we gonna take time now for questions, or are we gonna go straight into the Kahoot? I think we have 5 minutes for questions.
We're gonna go straight into the Kahoot, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start the Kahoot in a mode where I'm just gonna show you how I want you to use it. So this is just gonna take a second.
So real quick, while Rebecca gets that ready, if everyone could go to the chat, I have put the link to join the Kahoot in the chat. She's going to show you, there'll be a pin on the screen that you'll have to put into on the website so that you can join the game. And she recommends that you use a laptop because you'll want to zoom into the pictures by right-clicking on the images for when each question pops up. So we really recommend you do this on your laptop.
And so this is what's going to happen once I give you that number. You're going to get into the Kahoot. It's going to look like this. It's going to give you a countdown, and it's going to go directly into the quiz. You're going to have 60 seconds to answer this question. And which image shows the scattered Playa Lakes? If you'll right click here and open the image in a new tab, you can get a really good close-up look. And that's the way I would like for you to use this, so that you can go back and answer the question after you've had a chance to look at it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open it, and we're going to get the number that you need to get in.
Great. So you guys, the game pin is 7464120. So if you'll go ahead, and it'll ask you to input your name as well. Feel free to input something fun. Yes, Petrogal. I like it.
So once we get more people in, I'll go ahead and start it. Ooh, somebody just left. Hello, Bilbo. Okay, I'm going to give, we've got 7 people in. Here
We've got 8
comes
people
more.
now that are signed in for the Kahoots.
And there's 10 people on the call. So if you're still trying to get in, could you let me know? If nobody's still trying to get in, I'm going to start. Okay, we're going to start.
Can everybody see the image on the screen?
I don't think we can see the image. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Dodge, if you could go back, and we gotta double check those settings.
Okay, we could
Sorry
see
about
them
that.
yesterday.
I know, I don't know.
We
Let's
we
just
did
go
this.
to play.
Okay,
Go to play, and then go to teach. And then you wanna, okay, here it is. So show question and answers on players' devices. The third one, yep, we wanna
I don't
toggle
know
that.
why that changed. It
There
worked
we go.
yesterday.
All right.
Okay, that's
Sorry about
very
that.
frustrating. All right,
So now you can
do I
do-
need to save it?
No,
Or
now you can just press classic.
Well, how sad. So
Okay,
now you
so
need
the
a game pin.
yeah, so the game pin is different, everybody. It's
Well,
now
I'll check that before we start the next Kahoot. I'm sorry, we checked that yesterday and it reset itself. That's
yes.
odd.
So I placed the new pin in the chat. It's 3591982.
Okay, well, now everyone's getting practice with how to log into Kahoot.
Yes.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay, anybody still trying to get in?
I think we're good.
All right, I'm gonna start. Hopefully you can see.
Yep, it works.
Okay, I think I had 9 people in, so. All right.
Oh, I'm moving up.
Well, that one caught on. All right. All right. All right. We'll see who won.
Oh, I got third.
Who comes third? Joe Lady, that's me. Second.
Okay.
And on the podium, we've got
Bilbo Baggins.
Okay, Bilbo. Oh, and we had a Gollum. I missed that. All right. So,
Woo.
good job. Good job. Okay. So, what's next? Where do you want me to go next?
Yeah, so thanks, Dr. Dodge, for that interesting first Kahoot game. I'm sure we all enjoyed it. It was also a learning experience. I don't know about you, but for me personally. And just before we go into the next session, I'm just wondering if there's anybody that has a question. Don't forget, you can just drop your question in the chat box, or feel free to unmute yourself. Before we go through 5 minutes where Dr. George can answer these questions if you have any. So if you want to unmute yourself, put your camera on, you can do that. And if you've got any question and you want to just drop it in the chat box, please do not hesitate. It will take the next 5 minutes for Dr. Dodd to answer any questions relating to this session that we just had.
If you don't have any questions, I just want to say that this is designed as a fun, I hope, assessment for the teachers to use after their students have been to the exhibit and looked at all the imagery and used the scavenger hunt. And it's just sort of an assessment to see what they got out of it.
Well, it looks like we don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
Dr. Dodge, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? Oh, just kidding. Stefano raised his hand.
Stefano has a question.
Hi,
Okay.
this is Stefano Mazzoni. Thank you for the presentation. Quick question, Rebecca, for your, when you're, I guess my question is that most of us on the call here are geologists that are familiar with using, false color imagery, et cetera. How do you introduce those concepts, the kind of the quick primer on remote sensing techniques to both teachers and students?
I have I do face-to-face and
Okay.
virtual workshops where I introduce teachers to what you can see on satellite imagery, and then I show them how you can use it. So my initial, at the beginning of any one of these workshops, I introduce them to what the satellites are observing, the different wavelengths of light, how you put these together to make true color and false color images. So that is something that I have that material for the teachers to use when they come into the exhibit. There's a little poster that explains what the false color imagery, how it's made.
Cool, thank you.
And that virtual workshop, if you knew anybody in a school district that you wanted to use satellite imagery, I can do that virtual workshop for any school district in the world. It's very easy to do that.
Thanks, Stefano, for that question, and
Yeah,
thanks, Dr. Dodge, for answering that. Dr. George, would you like to share your screen to review the answers?
Yes, that is the next thing to show.
So
And
we will take the next 5 minutes just while Dr. Dodge gets her screen up. Just so you know, we will take the next 5 minutes for Dr. George to review the answers for this first part of the Kahoots, which we just played.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this, of course, is the image with the Playa Lakes. And this canyon is Palo Duro Canyon. When the National Park Service was looking to put in a national park in a really big canyon, this came in second to the Grand Canyon. So it's a really big canyon, but we have 2 state parks there now. This is, again, the volcanic field with all of the Mar style volcanoes and also the lava flow. These are the multicolored alluvial fans. We've got purple fans and blue fans and green fans, and it's just a pretty amazing area with a lot of different kinds of rocks producing the different colors of sediment that show up here. If you looked at this in a natural color scene, you wouldn't see all these differences. You have to have the infrared wavelengths to be able to see it. And again, this is the eroded batholith. I think everybody got this one. And the Rio Grande River. This is the Appalachian style folding down in the Marathon Basin and the overlying flat rock units. And this is the Salt Basin, which is actually an extensional graben. It's part of the Rio Grande Rift. Okay. I think it's time to move on to the change detection.
Yes, we will take the next 15 minutes just while Dr. Dodge gets the presentation out. If there are any questions, you still have 2 minutes. If there is something burning in your heart that you want to throw out there, please feel free to ask before we go into the next session. So Dr. Dodge will take us through another very interesting session, having a talk on imagery resources. So Dr. Dodge, if you would kindly share your screen, and if there are no questions, we will transit into the second part of our talk today, where we will go through the imagery resources by Dr. Dodge. Thanks, Dr. Dodge.
Okay, if you wanted to put together your own presentations like this that covered your own area, where would you get the imagery? If a teacher wanted to do it, if a college professor wanted to do it, I'm going to show you a couple of sites where there are thousands of pieces of imagery to choose from. One is from NASA and the other is from the US Geological Survey. So this imagery is free. It's been processed in amazing ways, and it's available for you to use. This first link, and these links, I think, how are they going to get access to these links, Chisholm?
So I'm dropping.
Put the links into the chat box, so you can click on it and you would have access to it.
The first link here, NASA Getting the Big Picture, is just a short, about 3-minute video about the kinds of satellites that NASA has in orbit to observe the Earth. And I'm not going to show you that, but I recommend you watch it because it's sort of bite-sized and it's something that a teacher could definitely use in her classroom or if she was teaching virtually. But again, what I want to remind you is that these are the types of things that teachers have to talk about and teach their students, make their students comfortable. Hopefully, if we want them to become geologists, make their students interested in these topics and convince their students that there are fun ways to look at this and fun ways to think about it and to study it and to make it useful. So again, you've seen that slide, but I'm going to be covering some resources that you can use to teach about this that are outside of my art exhibit that are easily available for you. Water resources occurs at grade level after grade level. They have to understand where the water comes from, how it's used, what controls whether you have access to it or not. And a lot of time that has to do simply with weather. It's not necessarily just due to climate change that you can have a drought. The droughts have been going on forever and they're going to keep happening. And so this is a resource called World of Change from NASA, and it's on the NASA Earth Observatory website. And so if you just Google Earth Observatory, you're going to be able to find the Earth Observatory site, search for World of Change, and you'll have all these resources available to you. But I want to show you what this World of Change resource does. So I'm going to open this site. So World of Change has multiple animations that cover a variety of different topics. And this particular one is about snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The amount of snow controls how much water is available for people to use in their homes, in their agricultural fields, in their industry. So the amount of snow that falls is critically important, and it changes from year to year. And so you're going to see some years there's not much. Some years it's kind of average. Other years there's a lot of snow. And as you get into the teens, there are several sort of low years. That's the worst. And this is important for humans, for livestock, for forests. It controls what's flowing into the streams. So it's even important for fish. So this type of animation is good, but I always think it goes too slowly. So just on this one, I'm going to show you what you do if you want to see all of these and be able to just scroll through them at your own pace and spend some time talking about each one of these. This is a way to scroll through them sequentially. So that is just one of the resources that is available for you on this World of Change with respect to water resources. That has to do with just year-to-year changes in the amount of snowfall. But if you look at human impacts, humans have put dams along rivers to capture the maximum amount of water to generate electricity for irrigation purposes, for drinking water. And this is Lake Powell along the Colorado River. And it's been under a long period of drought. So this is edging towards possibly an effect of a long-term climate change. This shows Lake Powell that is very, very full of water during 2000, the year 2000. But in 2021, where's the water? It's just not there. That affects everybody downstream, all life forms downstream. And of course, you can watch the animation and see the changes over time. Some years are good, some years are bad. But here, the long-term trend is for much less water in those reservoirs. This has been in the news a lot this year. So it's very topical. Teachers need to have resources to teach about it. If you want to talk about sediment and erosion and deposition, this is my favorite because it shows longshore currents changing these barrier islands in really, really dramatic ways over a fairly short period of time. And this is, students can really watch these barrier islands and begin to see these changes and understand the massive amount of energy that's moving these sediments along the shoreline. Over a very short period of time, you see dramatic changes. Here you've actually breached the barrier island. That has to do with a big storm that overwashed the island and broke it. And the same thing is going to happen up here. In a few years, you're going to have another big storm. But the barrier islands are rebuilding themselves and growing and changing constantly. So this is a beautiful illustration of energy in the environment, moving sediment, and truly changing the landforms. So by 2020, it's a completely different set of barrier islands than you had in 1986. And that again is something that you can step through and show particular events like the breaching caused by a big storm. And this is another one of my favorites that I want to play for you because this is about deposition. And this is material coming off of the land into the Gulf of Mexico. The Delta, Mississippi Delta is down to the southwest, but these are building out along the Atchafalaya River here, deltas that are growing by leaps and bounds over a period of about 25 years. These deltas become very large in size. As we get towards the end, they're more than 10 miles across. And in 1984, there was basically nothing here. And now there's a very well-established delta. So again, very easy to show the effects of erosion on land and deposition into the ocean. If we talk about rivers, we can see similar changes. And these rivers may not look dramatically different from 1988 to 2018, but during the intervening time period, you can see how the river has moved back and forth, how the islands, the deposits in the middle of the river have changed dramatically, how the meander patterns have changed. We can see cutoff of meanders. We can see dramatic changes in this river channel over a very short period of time. So again, if you're teaching about river type of landforms, this is a great way to illustrate how they change on a very short time frame. And that's one of the standards. Students have to understand how the earth changes in the short term and how it changes in the long term. So you want to talk about short-term changes, there it is. We can also look at the human impact of resource extraction. And this has to do with the mountaintop removal mining. And I'm not going to play this animation. I don't want to just take up all our time playing these animations. You can go in and spend hours playing these for yourselves and just learn so much. This is when they first began the mountaintop mining in this area, and the Hobet mine marched across the landscape from year to year, and they restored the landscape behind themselves to the extent that they could. Once they have taken the mountaintop off, they don't really put it back on. They push the debris into the rivers and fill in the valleys. So you're essentially smoothing out the landscape, and then they go back in and they plant grass on it. They've removed trees and restored it with grass. So these are significant changes to the hydrology of these areas and can cause some serious problems. If you want to talk about climate change, you need to go to the Arctic. And this is one that shows changes in how the ice is melting during the summer and exposing more and more of the ocean, which makes it warmer because the ocean absorbs heat from the sun. The ice reflected the heat out of the atmosphere. And this is about the retreat of a glacier. The glaciers that are on this slide are still feeding ice constantly into this fjord, but the ice is melting faster than new ice is coming in. And so you can watch over a period of time as the ice retreats up the valley, in spite of the fact that new ice is being produced and moving into the valleys and into the fjords. The front of the glacier is continuously retreating. And the scale here is 5 kilometers. So this steady retreat is taking place over a time period, and glacier fronts retreating at least 20 kilometers. And it's just not stopping. And you can see events like when the ice melts and releases a whole lot of ice all at once out into the water. So again, this is just something that teachers can use to easily demonstrate short-term change and trends in change on the planet. This is one, again, that's a wildfire. In this one, you can watch as the wildfire moves across the landscape, and then you can watch as the landscape recovers. So this is just a tiny fraction of the material that's available on that world of change. And in the Earth Observatory site, they have articles, blogs, they have a children's magazine. I really encourage you to visit this site. Now, NASA does have sort of a different perspective than the US Geological Survey does. And so some of the things you find on the Earth Observatory are going to lean more towards the environmentalist type of viewpoint. But it's all good science, and it covers a whole range of different topics very, very effectively. And the imagery is there for you to use and to introduce teachers to it. I introduce teachers to a lot of these resources in my 3-hour teacher training workshop. Earth Shots is the last thing I'm going to introduce you to in this presentation before I stop. It is also Landsat imagery that shows change all over the planet, and there are dozens of different topics that are covered. They have a whole series of change detection covering agriculture, energy, forests, wetlands, water, natural disasters, just about anything that you can study as it changes over time. You will find examples on this USGS site. And they will take a different look at it. This is the one that covers the mountaintop removal mining. And they will look at it from a slightly different perspective, show you similar changes, but then they will go into specific topics where you can read more and look at the imagery in a small area and sort of dive into understanding the effects of mountain type removal on hydrology, a description that tells you exactly what's involved in mountaintop removal mining and shows you, start to finish how one of these mines operates, and then dives into a discussion and explanation of the reclamation. So again, it's a more sort of research-oriented approach that would probably be more suitable for high school level and undergraduate level. And so each one of these is going to have a long list of technical references, and you won't always find that on the NASA Earth Observatory. So this is just, again, looking at a meandering stream and all the changes that are taking place, similar to the animation that we saw on the Earth Observatory. But again, they're going to go in and get more detail for you on oxbow lakes and point bars and changes within channels in a more in-depth fashion. And then this is just a change pair game that covers a diverse array of different topics. And we're going to do our own change pair game that I have developed for the Texas as Art and Texas from Space things that I have developed. So we're not going to play this game, but I wanted you to have this to share with people and to play for yourself. Okay, so I think we're going to be moving on to the Kahoot again and doing the change exercise with the imagery from Texas.
Yes, before we start, I know we had some people who joined in after we played the first Kahoot. So just on the second talk of our presentation, where Dr. Dodge has gone through resources that could be of help as an aid to teachers, or if you want to educate anyone on different topics. We've put up on the chat different links from the NASA website, World of Change. You can actually have access to all the different videos that you can see and use as a teaching aid Also on the chat, as we go into this pairing game that we're going to play again on Kahoot, the link to the Kahoot has been put on the chat box. Again, please, we encourage that you play the Kahoot using your laptop. And when Dr. Dodge starts the Kahoot, there will be a pin that will be shared, and you have to input that pin and then choose any name of your choice. The first Kahoot game, we could see a lot of creativity in the name choices that were chosen. So for those who have just joined us, we say welcome and thanks to join us on this webinar. Dr. Dodge, please, you may launch the second Kahoot.
Okay, so I need to make sure that this is set up right. And so I needed to go into teach.
Yes.
And
We will
Yes.
toggle on. Oh, it is toggled on already.
Great.
good. I don't know what happened to that other one. All right, so we're going to go into the classic and it's going to give you the pin.
So we've got 8 players so far that are logged in, 9. Can we get the 10th one? Yoo-hoo, we got a 10th player.
If you're still trying to log in, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and start it. You can unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, we got one more. Anybody else? Okay, well then I'm going to go ahead and start it. So we'll get the countdown, and when you see the first image, you can right click on it and open it in a new tab, and it will enlarge so that you can actually see it. Okay, I think that's it.
We have 11 players.
Oh, we have 11 players. Okay.
Yes, I'm ahead. I actually haven't played this one, so.
Now I'm guessing on this one.
Okay.
Yes, Stefano brings up a good point. You want to go from left to right, or from
Oh,
right
yeah.
to left, actually, right to left.
Right. Where the arrow is
Yes,
pointing
the
towards
arrow.
the last thing. Sorry about that. I thought that would be intuitive, but if it's not, that's good to know. I'll have to figure out a way. We're waiting on one more answer. Ah,
person.
there we go. This is Lake Arrowhead, near where I used to teach, near Wichita Falls.
Waiting for the 11th answer.
Got it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Last one.
Last question.
And for this one, be sure to right click and make it bigger.
So on the podium in third place, we've got West Texas Bond. On the second place, we've got Amethyst. And top of the podium, we've got Hodor.
Who's Hodor? Okay, right.
Congratulations.
Now that is, let me go over that one. The answers. Okay, this is the Oglala Aquifer area that I was talking about. And these are the Playa Lakes, and they dry up seasonally. And the soil moisture dries up too. And in this one, a lot of these islands are now underwater, and the lake level has risen, and the sediment has been carried in from the surrounding agricultural fields and clear cuts. And then this is a delta that's built out to the back bay behind a barrier island. This was during the drought. This was actually in 2011 when all the state of Texas was burning and everything was drying up, and the Lake Arrowhead lost about 75% of its water. This is the Bastrop fire near Austin that burned through the Bastrop State Park and just devastated. This is piney woods, beautiful, and it's recovering. It's recovering, but it's very slow process. And then this is the Permian Basin and all of the new production in these areas that previously had not been developed. Okay.
So thanks, Dr. Dodge. Just before we go on the second Kahoot, I just want to ask, is there anybody that has a question based on the pairing game that we've just done? Because next we are going to be playing another Kahoot, which will be a matching game. Does anybody have any question? Please unmute your mic, or you can also drop your questions in the chat box. Any questions? Okay, Dr. Dodge, we will go to the next. We'll play the matching game. I think people are burning to learn more while playing this Kahoot game. So
Okay. Now, this one is where there is an image and then there are pictures taken on the ground. And I want the students to be able to match what they're seeing in a photograph from ground level with what they are seeing on the image. Let's see if the setting on this one is correct. It's still on. Who knows? All right, so we're going to do another one.
So I have put the game pin on the chat is 286-4263. 286-4263.
We're getting the whole cast of characters from the Lord of the Rings. Okay, we're up to 10. Last time we had 11.
Are we waiting for the 11th player?
Yeah, maybe. Is anybody else still waiting to log on?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. All right, so we'll start this one. Okay.
That was a landslide.
Yes, that was a good one. That's Enchanted Rock near Austin. Most of these are state parks.
Yes. Moving up, moving up. Oh man, I don't know if I was fast enough on that one. I was too excited. I was celebrating already. Ugh.
This is one where you have to look at the image to make sure you're picking the right one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Another,
everybody got it.
we're on fire.
Oh, yes. So close.
Okay,
Last
last
one.
one. Last one.
Oh no, I think I picked the wrong one.
You can't go
Gosh.
back, can you?
Darn it. Oh no. Gosh darn it.
Okay.
Now I'm in 6th place.
So in third place, we've got IMAP.
Woo.
In second place, we've got Opal. And in first place, we've got SMOS.
Smog.
All
Woo.
right.
And West Texan and Moore came fourth and fifth place as the runner-up. Thanks, everyone. So
Okay.
they're gonna share their answers to these questions.
And so this material is available in different forms. It comes on 8.5 by 11 handouts that you can do with students. I have it as a game where you have the image, and then on the back it says, I have a picnic area surrounded by a dune field. And then it says who has, and it leads to another image. And so students have various ways to play these games and to get a closer look at the materials. So this is the exfoliation dome, Enchanted Rock. And this is one of the state parks where the river is running right on tilted beds. So you can see these tilted rocks, and it's a long series of waterfalls. It's an absolutely beautiful area. And this again is Paladura Canyon, etched into the plateau. This is Corpus Christi Bay, and Corpus Christi State Park is right down here. So you're looking out into the Gulf of Mexico and to what Texans call surf. I'm not sure everyone would call that surf. This is the Monaghan Sandhill State Park, the one that has the oil production around it. And this is the Lake Arrowhead State Park during the drought. So the water level is just pitifully low. And these are the answers. So the teachers have access to the answers. They have access to everything that has to do with these resources. They have answers, they have student handouts. and they learn how to use all this during the workshop, the 3-hour workshop that I do. Well, I think we're doing reasonably well on time, because I think we're going to use the last little bit of this to answer any questions that anybody had.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dodge. That was really fun. I had a blast with the last 2 games and came second, which I did not expect. I think I'm not competitive, and then I get a second and I get too excited. And okay, so now we will take the next 10 minutes to take questions from anyone that has any questions about any part of today's presentation or the games, or any questions directly to Dr. Dodge. Unmute yourself, raise your hand, or put the questions in the chat, or you can also message me directly on the chat if you want me to just say it anonymously, or Chisholm too. So does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Dr. Dodge?
Yes.
I understand there's a couple of rare earth mines that have opened up just east of El Paso in Hudspeth County. So I've gone out and I've looked at those mines on Google Earth, but from a geological perspective, what would you be looking for a mineral deposit on the surface versus a subsurface petroleum deposit?
You know, there would be probably some alteration, and the alteration might affect the vegetation that would grow. If the mineral deposit was actually exposed at the surface, there might be oxidation. There would be minerals that were different. They would create differences in the soil. It might create differences in the erosional expression of the landscape if that mineralized rock was either less or more resistant. There's a variety of different things that you might be able to see, and you might be able to see it on the imagery in those infrared wavelengths that will show alteration products.
Well, in a mineral deposit, would you be able to see structural characteristics on the surface then?
It just depends on what kind of deposit, the level of weathering and erosion. It could be, you know, it could be something really obvious, or it might be something really obscure. And I really don't know that area out there. But that is one of the applications that, you know, the exploration for minerals is something that's very topical right now with the rare earth minerals. And there are just a lot of different things that are in the news right now that educators are trying to introduce their students to, and really all the purpose of all the development that I'm doing with any of this is to make sure that geologists feel like they can address some of these hot topics with either students, or, you know, talking to the Lions Club, or doing a short teacher workshop, or, you know, just, I want everybody to feel empowered to address some of these issues, and especially to show children how fun it can be to look at the earth and ask and answer questions about it.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question from Stefano. He wants to know what the response has been from different grade levels, so elementary, middle school, and high school, etc.
Most of the workshops that I've done over the past several years have been really focused on middle school teachers, because that's where they teach earth science in Texas. It's 8th grade. And so most of my workshops have addressed the standards that they're looking at and giving them resources to teach. And they're specifically teaching a lot about landforms. And I've gotten very good response. I've given the workshop probably a dozen times over the past 4 years, and I keep adding new stuff to it. And different school districts and educational service centers hear about it and call me up and say, give it here. So somebody, you know, wants to learn how to use this material, And I really do start with the basics. I even have exercises that first teach students how to just, what can you see on an image? And then teach the students about XY coordinates and using a geographic coordinate to find something or to tell somebody where something is. And then they learn about scale and measuring things on imagery and just, you know, give them the ability to understand what they're seeing on the imagery. And that, so that I give those exercises to the teachers to use, and they seem to like them.
Have these materials been used in an undergrad class, for example?
I have actually used them in my teaching. When I was teaching environmental science, I was able to introduce satellite imagery, and I also used them in my geomorphology class when I taught geomorphology and we were talking about landforms. Then I used the satellite imagery and a lot of these exercises just to introduce students to what you can see on imagery and how you can interpret it.
Yes, I'm already thinking of using them in a TAing lab for an environmental class. It seems very fitting.
Well, I can send you some of the exercises that sort of scaffold up so that students understand what they're seeing on the satellite image. Because all those strange colors can be sort of disturbing. When the vegetation is red, it just is disturbing to me.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, getting them used to the colors and what they mean. Do you show them some pictures unaltered, I'm guessing, and then some?
Yes. Yeah.
I
can send you some of the short presentations that I use where I'm just doing sort of a bite-size, 10-minute lecture on just that sort of thing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
And then you can alter them in any way you want. All of this work I'm doing is funded by your tax dollars, so I give it away because I can't sell it. You have already paid for it.
Dr. Dodge, I have a question. I'm just wondering, for the middle school, if we say to target the middle school teachers, is this something you could do where you could come to give a talk to a school to educate their teachers on how to use this specifically to a particular school? Or what would be the process if they wanted to do something like that, such that they could invite you to have this talk? And would that be possible?
It would be possible if I could do it virtually. I am the caregiver for my 90-year-old mother, so I don't travel a lot, especially just, like for a really short term. But I'm happy to do virtual workshops, and they've worked really, really well. And we could do a Kahoot with the teachers and the 3-hour virtual workshop that I do for the 8th grade earth science teachers, and I have another one that's about change analysis. Those are pretty easy to do virtually. They've worked out really well because I've done it 3 times now, and I've got it kind of focused in. It works.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? I have a couple more minutes.
Well, thanks to everybody for helping to make this happen, and thanks to everybody who came. I'm happy to be able to talk with people about how to use this imagery to introduce people in a pretty and engaging way with studying the earth.
So I guess with that being said, we're just 3 minutes towards the end. I think we've been good on time, and I hope you all enjoyed this session of this webinar series. So I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Dodge. I think she does deserve a round of applause.
Thank you.
An interesting time. I think we've learned a lot. I'm already curious about how I will integrate this for my kids. I don't know about you, but I'm already thinking one step ahead. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who also signed in for this. It's been put on the chat. If you've got more questions and you have any, you want to link up with Dr. Dodge, just write in the chat. There is her email details. She is free and happy to answer your questions and to help guide you if you've got any questions. We will share the materials that has been used during this webinar. We will send it via your individual mails. And once again, we want to say thank you for joining for this webinar. There is also in the chat box a link if you would like to join the AAPG Women's Network. There's going to be lots and lots of webinars to come in 2022. So fingers crossed, and look out on LinkedIn, look out in your emails. Don't forget to go to the AAPG website or to the LinkedIn page for more information. And if you would like to join the Women's Network, the link has been put again on this chat, and feel free to fill the form and send in, and we would reach out to you. Also, if you would like to watch a repeat of this webinar, the YouTube link has also been put up on the chat box. We will send this link again to you via email so you can have a replay of this webinar and more or less learn a little bit more. So that being said, we have come to the end of today's webinar. Want to say a big thank you to the organizers, to my co-moderator, Anahi, and for Nicole for stepping in at short notice when Rebecca was unavoidably absent, to Dr. Dodge again for reaching out and spending time to create this and the dry runs. We really do appreciate this, but most especially special thanks goes to all of you who created time to spend your lunch time with us participating in this webinar. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to another interesting webinar with you all in 2022. So have a good afternoon and have a good day.
Thank
Cheers.
you. I appreciate this from everybody that did that.
Thank
Thank you, John.
Thank you.